I think the main issue that is of interest to me at the moment is whether we are going to go down the collectivist route yet again. We thought that once we had defeated fascism and eventually also defeated communism with the crumbling of the Berlin Wall and the tearing down of those horrible pieces of concrete by the young men of both sides in Berlin, we thought that the age of collectivism was over. But now it is back, and if anything, in an even more pernicious form than either fascism or communism. And this is the sort of green environmentalism. I'm concerned now that if we allow the environmental extremists to continue on their present path, very great harm will be done to humanity, and very great harm will be done, perhaps terminal harm, will be done to Western civilization. So there are wider issues at stake here than just the climate. The question is whether we are to be governed by totalitarians who do not allow us to have alternative opinions on questions like climate change, who only permit one point of view. People have been sacked from the CSIRO here in Australia for daring to suggest there might not be a problem with the climate. People are being sacked and bullied at universities all over the country. Teachers in schools are being sacked if they dare to say there might not be a problem. And this kind of socialistic, totalitarian one-sidedness is something we need to see the back of. And it worries me more than somewhat that there's now a growing trend of only allowing what I'm bluntly going to call the Communist Party line to prevail rather than a proper scientific debate on scientific questions. For the last 6.5 years, the thing I've been doing most of is going around the world saying to people, look, don't worry about global warming. You have children committing suicide because their ridiculous environmental extremist teachers have told them that their mere existence on the planet is doing the planet harm. No, it's not. We are part of nature too. We have a place in nature, and it's a place which, although it has been growing this century and the last one, the population is about to stabilize. When it stabilizes, it will then begin to plummet without any need for any intervention by socialists or anybody else. And so we should not feel guilty that we're on this planet. We should not feel that by putting back a little bit of CO2 into the atmosphere, we're going to cause climatic disaster. It's now blindingly obvious to everyone except a few socialists that we're not going to cause any sort of a disaster. And therefore we must get back to rationality in science. And I'm going around saying this all over the world, saying we must have no more of the party line dictating what people can say and think. And that instead we must get back to the age of enlightenment and reason into which I was born. And we must prevent these wretches from dragging us down into a new dark age where nobody is allowed to have any opinion other than that which the state hands down as a party line. What will I be doing in 10 years' time? I will probably be pushing up the daisies. But what will Australian politics look like? I think that the lies that were told by your present administration to justify the carbon tax, the lie that you weren't going to have one, and then you got one, the lies about the climate, those will be a thing of the past. And those who told those lies and went on telling them long after it was plain to everyone that they were lies, those people and the parties they represent will be flung from office. I think it's going to happen quite soon, perhaps on September the 14th. And then I think that people will be much more careful before they ever vote socialist again, because who was going to get hurt first and worst by the carbon tax? The answer, of course, is the working people who spend a larger proportion of their hard-earned wealth on fuel and power than everybody else. So the working people were being kicked in the teeth by the government which claimed to be representing working people, but now in fact represents a metropolitan communistic class, totally devoid of any connection with working people. This is an extraordinary change in the parties claiming to represent Labour worldwide. It's much the same in Britain and also in America as well as Australia. And of course, this has been going on here since the 1950s, when the Democratic Labour Party, now represented by John Madigan in the Senate, broke away and said, we don't want communism. And I think now that you've got a more or less explicitly communist government, which is about to be thrown out, particularly on this business of trying to make a party line out of science. And science, of course, is objective and cannot be subjected to politics in the way they've tried to do it. I think that a lesson will have been learnt as a result of the lamentable performance of this present government, which will lead people to take the view that never again should they allow politics to infect science in the way that it so has in the last few years in many countries, and especially in Australia. There will be no carbon tax in 10 years' time. There will be no mineral resources rent tax. But I guess that you and your children will still be paying off the massive financial debt of the present financially irresponsible government.